ashes. The spirits light up the night, looking down the edge of forever. So stop me or take my advice.
I'm missing someone. There he is.
Just messing with you. How are you?
Trying to make me panic.
How are you?
Good.
You're doing good?
Yeah.
You're not. Normally you say I'm okay.
I'm great.
No. Normally you say okay. I'm okay.
Yeah, that's kind of sad.
I was going to ask you, do you know what okay even means? Nobody knows what okay means.
What does it mean?
Go ahead in the chat. Just somebody, hurry up, spit out. What does okay mean? Nobody knows. Think about that. You say it. We all say it every day, all of us, but nobody knows what it means. So in Boston, it was really cool to misspell words.
To misspell?
I don't know. In like the 1830s, it was like a big deal for the elites to just misspell words on purpose. I don't know why.
Just so they could get away with it.
Right. And so one of the ways they would spell all okay would be O-L-L, correct. They would say all correct with a K. Well, the one time, and then eventually it started making the papers, that term, all correct. And then eventually it got abbreviated to okay. And there were tons of these invented in the 1830s. Tons of phrases like okay, but most of them have been lost, except that one stuck around. So there you go.
What does okay mean to you?
It means all is correct, because I've kind of known that meaning.
Crack the secret.
All correct. It's all good. People talk different back in the 1800s. They really did. Deadwood was one series. Did you ever see the Deadwood series?
That's on
you
my
need to watch
list.
it, because it's the one, whoever wrote the scripts, the stories, really focused on early English, American English.
On the language. And
it's really interesting. If you really recommend it to everybody. For that alone, it's fascinating.
So just how the dialogue is written.
Just how sentences were put together, phrases were put together, just everything is different.
Can you imagine trying to capture that authentically?
Well, yeah, no, I guarantee it wasn't easy. But they did a really good job. And I'll be honest, that's what fascinated me about that show. So anyhow, moving on. So anyhow, you're not okay today. You're good.
Yeah.
You picked a one day. I was going to spring that on you. Did you say good? I guarantee if you went back and looked at your previous podcast, every time I ask you, I'll say, I'm okay. I'm okay. Anyhow, let's see. News. There was some kind of interesting news. There's one I want to spring on everybody. Did you know that they have now completely perfected and invented an artificial living cell where its DNA is actually computer code?
So they
and it's alive.
Generated the DNA code.
Yes.
And then made it like alive.
They made us, with chemicals, 4 chemicals. They created a cell, artificial.
Eventually, are they just going to print creatures out?
And I'm like, well, what could go wrong here, right? Nothing could possibly go wrong here. But here's the weird part. That's actually news from 2010.
It's that old?
Yes, I'm just pulling that on everybody. Yeah, that's actually old news from like 12 years ago. So imagine what they're doing today, 12 years later, that we do not know about. Now, the weird thing is, what does scare me is that they made it open source, how to do this. So you personally would have access to this. Any country would. And that includes creating, viruses, vaccines. Dinosaurs. I mean, you could think of all sorts of things you could do with it. Weird creatures, God knows.
Pterosaurs.
Yeah, things. I don't know. But it's the only cells that actually have DNA from computer code.
That is so wild.
So that's in the news, but not in the news. I was just pulling a fast
What do
one.
you think they know behind the scenes that they're not open sourcing? They got to be.
Oh man, you would
10
think
years ahead of that.
you would think if the U.S. Discovered this,
Yeah.
that they would keep that secret.
Maybe the only reason they didn't is because they're so further along. It was like whatever.
I don't know. I don't like that. So and that was actually developed by I think the Craig Venter Institute and announced in 2010. Yep. Craig Venter Institute. Yep. So let's see here. Oh, apparently my user session has just expired again, right during the podcast.
Oh, of course.
What is going on? So I have to log into my own. Look at this. I literally have to. Google is making me go through all these. Oh my God, this is crazy. I swear this is happening. I'm not pulling anybody's leg. Not pulling anybody's leg on this. God. So strange. Of course, every time it tells me my password's wrong. Like same thing each time. And I can see my password's right. There it is again. Oh my God, that was so bad, Alex.
What's your password? I love Alex.
Yeah, that's it.
12.
Okay, this is getting really weird. So it's rejected. It's rejecting my password. Not that the show can't go on, but I had a few show notes. And then I have my notes. Yeah, it is literally rejected every every password I've put in.
Well, why don't we after the show I can jump on with you.
I think you need to. Yeah, that's kind of enough of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, see, same password. It suddenly accepted it. So it's all good. But is that irritating? I've been on my computer for hours and hours. Why would they ever expire you?
Because they know you're on the air.
Is that it? They don't want me.
They're trying to censor you.
Yeah, government conspiracy. Oh no, I lost my place. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so another scary science story. Another cool story. This is new. They've just discovered that they can use your router, or they could be outside with a router, $50 router, and map the entire inside of your home and where you are in that home.
That's terrifying.
That is terrifying if you think about it, because, we're talking $50 in a very little tiny program, and they can see you inside your home.
You're talking
in
like
3D.
like a 3D
mind
image?
you, 3D. So if you're sitting on the toilet, they're going to see you sitting on the toilet. And that's due to just, it makes sense. It's just resistance of your body, of the of the Bluetooth or the wire Wi-Fi signal. So it's measuring the distances. It's kind of like dolphin sonar, I guess. So that's the unsettling news of the day. Things people don't want to hear. I didn't want it. Huh?
Trust no one.
Oh my God, we are getting into a crazy world. There was an article yesterday about like the singularity is like a couple of years away, maybe 7 years away.
Yeah.
That's scary to me. Oh man, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be like maybe Mad Max of people hacking each other. You know what I mean? It's going to be nuts. It's going to be the Wild West of hacking and identity stealing. And okay, so tonight we have Cliff Barackman. I don't even know how to pronounce. I keep hearing his name pronounced so many ways. And I hear him pronounce his name, and then I forget. I know I'm close. Barackman.
I'm gonna go with Barackman.
Barackman, yeah, that sounds right.
It's a good name.
Yeah. I had a teacher named Barack.
Barack.
Yeah, just Barack. That was his name. Yeah, he was kind of mean.
Not like this Cliff.
No.
Sweetheart.
Cliff's like the super nicest guy you'd ever meet. Okay, I've got to pour some of my purple junk in my floating cup. Oh, it is. I swear to God, it's on the floor. The cup.
Oh, great.
I have a whole bunch. I have 1,000 cups for you to take.
Yeah.
Let me see ya.
They're all the
Cheers.
size of a thimble.
Cheers. Yes. I was trying to pour OJ in one before bed last night. And I put it down. It stuck to my hand. I put it down. I had to shake it off. Oh, my God, on the counter. So anyhow, back to, we have Cliff on tonight from Finding Bigfoot. He's got, Bigfoot and Beyond podcast. He's the curator. Man, my voice today. Pardon me, everybody. Super bad. It's when it gets humid. My voice just goes you got snowing out, right? Again.
Yeah. Of course. More snow.
Of course, I'm on the phone all day. It's not my first rodeo today. And towards the end of the day, it just gives out. Okay. What was I saying? I was talking about, and of course, the star of the long-running series, Finding Bigfoot. And then we have D.A. Roberts that's going to stop in and talk about his new book. And D.A. is a podcaster, researcher, and an author. And he'll be on here very shortly. So we're going to just kind of do a quicker intro today. So instead of Doug's top 10 clips, we're going to do top 6.
Doug's top 6. Let's do it.
Oh, I like that sassiness in here. Don't you hate that word? Hey. So, clip 1 is really, even I can't figure it out. I mean, it could only be a couple of things that happen. But you've heard birds on a wire? Well, check these birds out. Just wait.
I see them. They're hanging like bats. Are they alive? Are they dead?
I think they're crows. Because some of them have died. So what I think, I don't know if it's raining and it froze and they actually got their feet frozen to the wire, or they were electrocuted because of water.
They're just crisp.
Normally birds don't get electrocuted because there's no grounding.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bother them. I just thought, that's the first time I've ever seen something, so I'm putting it up. Those kind of birds are very smart. I mean, they're like chimpanzee intelligence. You think they wouldn't have got themselves into this situation?
Oh, yeah. Especially all of them.
Enough of that. Clip 2. So you can start playing that. Well, no. Let me explain it. Pause it.
Oh,
sorry. It's all right.
No, it's fine.
But I first want to tell. You obviously you've written in your brother's Tesla.
Yeah.
Many times. So have I. Isn't the radar or that screen weird?
Yeah.
It is weird because it sees like the stoplights, the signs, and the cars, but nothing else. And people, but nothing else. So it uses ultrasonic technology combined with cameras and then runs it through AI and does some kind of weird process. But people have now been reporting seeing ghosts.
Oh.
With the Tesla cars. So go ahead and just play it. I think you can play the audio.
Okay.
Or maybe not. Maybe I can just explain. I'll just play it and I'll just explain it. Not that I already haven't. Okay. Clip 2. Yeah. So they'll have it like they'll go to graveyards where there's no people day and night. They'll aim it and they'll see people walking around or people. Now, what's really interesting is Blaine is going to go try this because he found this really interesting. So he's going to go try this and report back to us on whether he sees anything weird, like in a graveyard.
Yeah.
So watch this. So when you drive, yeah, and this is kind of not what it looks like. I'll show you what it looks like for anyone that hasn't seen it. It's very impressive. You can see the cars behind you too, because these ultrasonic sensors are all around the car. So wouldn't it be cool if there really was some invention by just, doing self-driving cars that solves a big paranormal mystery?
Yeah, an accident.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah,
I don't know.
well,
Maybe everybody's heard this. I
I
had never heard.
Definitely interesting.
Have you ever heard this before?
No, but it makes sense.
I never did either.
With all those sensors.
Yeah, and it's beaming this ultrasonic frequency. So, yeah, it could be some truth to it if you believe in ghosts. All right, enough of that crap. So the next clip is super interesting. Don't play it yet. Let me explain it. Clip 3. I'd never heard this term, and yet it made so much sense. And it's called sidewalk sniping. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
It's a new trend. It's a new way to make money. Sidewalk sniping.
What do they do?
Okay, so you know that the crack, the expansion crack between concrete and sidewalks, like in inner city, where there's just tons of trash. New York. So they dig the dirt out with a screwdriver. Then they vacuum up the dirt and they take it back home, and then they pan for gold. And they find diamonds and jewels and gold and, all these precious stones that have fallen out of rings and work their way into that crack. And maybe, over 40 years, that inner city hasn't had a hard enough rain because, the buildings are blocking their, the rain to wash that stuff out. So there's channels popping up of sidewalk sniping. I'd recommend people check it out. It's kind of interesting. It's gross as heck.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't think anything get any grosser. First I heard it, I'm like, thinking about it, but it's super interesting. So let's watch the video here. You can see, just look at all the stuff he finds in just one thing. It's coming. It's a short clip. So he takes and he digs all this crap up, with a screwdriver, mixes it up, and then pans for gold, basically. Turns into this sludge. And in this, when he gets a bucket of sludge, he'll find tons of precious stones. So, Ruben, look at the diamond.
I know. That's incredible.
So there you go, people. You like to pan for gold, but you want to do it in the city, in the danger of the city, going sidewalk snipe.
Add some drama.
I think I'd rather be in the mountains of Montana and fend off grizzly bears than in the inner city panning for this. But even gold is found.
I wonder how many
fillings fall out of people's teeth. What?
I wonder how many streets he had to empty out before he got that.
I don't think I wouldn't. Yeah, if you really think about it, it wouldn't be a lot. Okay, enough of that. But I thought people would find that interesting as heck. Plus, could be your new hack to make ends meet. Right? No, Alex is like, no, I'm not having any part of that. It would be fun just to try it once, right? You gotta admit it's tempting.
Yeah.
I mean, just think of the crap that would accumulate. Yeah, it makes sense. Because the soils would constantly be getting washed away. But the heavier things like diamonds and think of all the people that walk down the street where the diamond falls out of their ring.
Yeah.
Or their ear or whatever. Their pendant. That drop stuff. Yeah, it just gets ground into that crack. Oh, God, I want to think about it. Okay. Clip 4 is kind of self-explaining, I guess. Very quick. Go ahead and play it. It's just kind of weird. Shows how powerful a kick can be from a donkey or a zebra. He kicks his warthog, I think it is a warthog, and just kills it. It's dead. It's quivering. It's doing the death quiver.
Oh, that's brutal.
That's brutal, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it shows you get nailed the right way. You're going down. Down he goes. Look at the death quiver. Okay, that's enough of that crap. Clip 5 is definitely what could go wrong. Self-explanatory, very short. Watch this, and you just think about all the things that could go wrong with this. And this is now the new way I get out of bed, by the way. I use a fulcrum and a rock.
And you're just gonna try to.
Two guys
catch 'em.
jump. Yep, off a.
And
leverage.
they almost missed him.
Yep. Oh, there's so many things that go wrong. That guy could get catapulted way behind the. One of the people, and I mean that would be a nice fall, wouldn't it? So anyhow, great way to get out of bed though in the morning.
Yeah.
Jerry rigged this up.
Just
I land on my feet every morning, Alex.
Don't show your insurance agent.
Yeah. All right. Enough of that crap. 6. The last one, and we're gonna is we have DA in the background.
Yeah.
Okay. So clip 6, last one. This is super interesting. So you know how plants breathe, right? We all know that from school. They breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen, the opposite of us. Well, nobody has ever photographed in color their little mouse, how they breathe. How do they breathe? Or their pore, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But it's actually called, it is a, oh my God, hang on, don't play it yet. It looks like a human mouth to me. A stomata. It's actually called a stomata, their breathing pore. So play the clip. It's fascinating. A lot more to plants,
this is
people.
A new close-up clip of a plant breathing. So this was captured over there in San Diego at the University of California, and it's absolutely amazing. So just to kind of explain what's going on here. So plants, they're the exact opposite of us, right? So we breathe in oxygen and then exhale carbon dioxide. And then plants use their little mouths, which are these called stomata, to take in that carbon dioxide and release oxygen. It's such an amazing balance. We give them what they need to survive.
I swear I see a tongue, right, Alex? Do you see the tongue?
So this is a new close-up clip of a plant breathing. So this,
but that's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who would think you could see stuff like this?
I know.
It's like respirating.
I wonder what the magnification is on that thing.
I don't know. I would love to have it. I mean, that could have been something. Maybe I've even got some. I don't know. Can't be that much. I don't know. Whatever. I like John's comment on that. The zebra that nailed the warthog. He goes, "Bacon's ready." Nice. Okay, so D.A. Roberts is I would consider him kind of an eccentric author, researcher, and podcaster. Because he always wears, the reason I call him eccentric, every time I see him, a lot of times he got a different hat on, different type of hat. So I'm hoping he's going to come on with some kind of cool hat tonight. That's just my wishful thinking.
You might be lucky.
I was going to cheat and call him and say, "Hey, DA, put on a cool hat tonight." But anyhow, let's bring him on. There he is. Hey, you got a cool hat. You got not only a cool hat, you got a cool shirt.
Thank you. This is my Kolchak hat. I thought it appropriate.
Yeah, it's perfect. See, I told you. And I swear to God, did not talk to him. Did you and Alex discuss hats, DA?
No, sir.
Yep, see, it's all just happened.
It was a toss-up between this one and my leather pork pie.
Oh, you got your Breaking Bad hat. Anyhow, good. So you've got a new book. I would imagine it's released, correct, or about to be released?
It should have been out like days ago, but we've been having trouble with Amazon. They are way behind on the release schedule.
Okay.
It was supposed to be out by Friday, and I just got off the phone with my Amazon reps today, and they said it's still in the clearing process. So they're telling me it should be out within 48 hours.
Okay. Well, it's very soon. So this podcast is very appropriate. So tell us about the book. I don't even know the title, or I've forgotten the title because I know we did talk. Go ahead.
It's the fourth book in my Codename Wild Hunt series, which is a series about a military unit that hunts dangerous cryptids. This one's called Codename Wild Hunt: Death in Dyatlov Pass. I think you can guess from the title where it's set. But I'm really happy with the way this book turned out. It came out at about 80,000, almost 81,000 words. So it's a pretty hefty book by my standards. I generally do between 70 and 75,000. So this one's a little over, but it ties into a much larger universe. It should be out in a couple of days. If you're not familiar with the Wild Hunt series, I would start with the first one, which is called Codename Wild Hunt: Odin's Call. But I think if you're into cryptids and you're into anything with a lot of action, I think you're going to enjoy these books.
So it takes place in the Ural Mountains in Russia, correct?
Yes, at Koyat-Sakal.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd tell you, I own a Ural motorcycle.
Really? That is awesome.
Made in the Ural Mountains, still by the same company. Yeah, it's got a sidecar on it, the whole deal. It's not like an old World War II motorcycle.
I'd love to have something like that. That is awesome.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of fun. I don't know. So if you can picture me riding a motorcycle with a sidecar on it and running through the desert, that's and it's 2-wheel drive, so it's like a Jeep almost. You can go through anything with the damn thing.
I'm going to guess it's very low geared.
Yes, low geared. Sounds like a sewing machine that's broken. Yeah.
There's another extremely low geared motorcycle that's made in Brazil. It's called the Amazoa, and it's actually like a 650 or a 750 Kawasaki frame with a Volkswagen engine on it, they just basically idle up the side of these mountains with it.
God, is there anything you don't know, DA? Answer that.
I'm a jack of all trades and master of none. I read constantly. And my wife says I'm a fountain of useless trivia.
Oh my God.
Building you up.
So we're going to do a show with you for the full 2 hours, and we're just going to call just Jabbing with DA. That's it. We're just going to jab.
I'm down anytime. Let me know.
Just go anywhere it goes. We don't care.
Well, some of the conversations you and I've had, I really got excited about when we spoke about culling, the old Viking herding calls, and when you said it was similar to what you heard up at Snell Grove.
Yep.
To me, that is just astounding. So I'm going to add that to my repertoire on my phone for when I go to new areas. I thought about playing that and just see what kind of reaction I get.
Well, explain now that we've got people are going to go. I'm going to get about 1 million letters going. What's calling? So you got to go ahead and explain it.
Well, it's a old Viking herding call because the cattle would graze far and wide over these mountains and valleys in order to call them back. It's not just a matter of shouting at them. It was more of a matter of actually being able to project your voice over that distance. So it's kind of like a really haunting mixture of yodeling and singing, because it's not really words and it's not truly yodeling. It's a mixture of high and low pitch notes, and it carries over a very long distance. And when you mentioned that type of call that you'd heard at Snell Grove, I said, "Is it anything like this?" and sent you that link, and you were like, "Oh my God, that is almost exactly what I heard." Which makes sense to me if there were, and we know that there are Bigfoot type creatures throughout Northern Europe. The Woodwoes example, or if you want to look at that Grendel from Beowulf, the Beowulf poem, that very much describes a Sasquatch type creature. So if these creatures exist in that area, it's only fitting or it's only understandable that they would have learned that call.
So somebody just said you are the Heisenberg of Bigfoot. I love it.
Well, hopefully without the blue rocks. I'll pass on that.
Caillou Ninja, if I'm pronouncing your handle right. Obviously, I doubt it's your real name. Caillou Ninja 1985. Is that how you say that? Anyhow, but yeah, we got to get you on soon. Let's do something in February, March, and let's just see where it goes.
Okay, I'm down anytime.
I don't know if anybody will watch us, but let's do it.
I could ramble on for hours. Yeah. I'm kind of like a donkey from Shrek. Yeah, I can talk. It's getting me to shut up. That's the trick.
Well, unfortunately, we got to bring Cliff on. unfortunately. Is Cliff available, Alex?
I got him down for what is it? 7:45.
Oh, we can keep going then. So we're not holding Cliff up.
No, I'll let you know when he shows up.
Oh, okay, great. Well, let's keep going. You can go. I know you have a podcast tonight in just a short time, right?
Yeah, in about 25 minutes when we'll
Oh,
go
good.
live.
Well, it works out. Well, we'll talk for 10. You got 5 more minutes? 10
You're
more
double
minutes?
Absolutely.
So let's see if we can we find is there a possible for Alex to find a clip? Can you spell that herding
It's-
call term so we can
Yeah,
look
it's
it up?
called Culning, Kulning. There are quite a few videos of it on YouTube. It's just an old Viking style herding call that can be heard for miles in
Yeah,
the mountains and valleys.
But here's what we heard. I was with my son Josh and my best friend Joe, and we were in a boat, sunset up at Snowgrove. This is before we knew there was anything to do with Bigfoot up there. And we hear what sounds like a female singing an opera on the shore. And this went on like 20 minutes. And I've never been able to find anybody that's heard anything just like it, but although people have reported female type, Bigfoot type singing. And this definitely sounded female. And it was going through like all of the notes and the octaves, and there was no bird. I mean, it was definitely a human-like voice. I know most of the birds up there, and I've never heard anything, and it was loud. So it was in those days, we didn't have cell phones that had recorders on them. This would have been like in the 90s, early 90s, right? And Josh was up there because it was his graduation present, one of them. Yeah, did you find it, Alex?
DA, can you spell that for me in the chat?
Yeah, I'll put it over in the private.
There's a lot of stuff coming up, and I just feel like I don't have the right thing.
Alex, you were too shy to ask it again, didn't you?
Yeah.
Spelling.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I
I'm that way
totally
too.
I got that wrong.
I'm that way too.
Call me. Okay. So I'm gonna add this to stream, and maybe you could help me point out one that you feel is appropriate.
Just sent you the link. That pop one is
perfect.
a good one.
Oh, you sent me a link. Okay.
The one with the white cow and the woman. That's one that me and DA were sharing.
Oh.
This is so exact, DA, what we heard up there. God, I get chills. I'm getting chills listening to this.
And you can see it works. I mean, it's literally pulling the cows to her.
What if, let's play what if. What if they use it not for celebration or just, because it sounded like it was, what if they use it to call game in? What if moose, for instance, are attracted to this sound? Other animals.
I can see how it would work. I mean, pretty much, any ungulate is probably going to be curious about what's going on in its environment, especially if it's a sound it doesn't recognize.
Yeah.
If it doesn't recognize it as a threat sound, it may go investigate.
So up at Snell, they have woodland caribou. They don't have deer. They don't have a white-tailed deer, but they have woodland caribou, which are pretty big and formidable. And I've called woodland caribou. They're very subjective to calling. I remember I called when we were up at Cook Lake, Alex. Do you remember that? I called that caribou right up to our boat.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I believe so.
Well, Cook Lake. Well, if you don't remember, I know Blaine remembers. Because Joe came back and he's like, oh, there was a moose that came out. He saw a moose on this island. So I went over and said, no, I don't think it was a moose because he described it with white on it. So we went over there. We took the boat over there and I called it right out and it charged
right
us.
to the boat.
You don't remember that?
Was that me?
It was you and Blaine. We were at Cook Lake. Remember the place where the big moon thing happened? We were catching those huge walleyes.
I don't know why. I'm just.
There was a moon set there
How old do you think I was?
Oh my God, you were freaking 10, I think. 10.
10.
Do you remember the guy that got locked in the shed? The kid?
Yeah, it was that
Remember-
weekend.
That was that weekend. Okay. So you're going to have to think about that. But anyhow, my point is caribou can be called very easily, and maybe something like that would have a calling. You got to kind of play what if when you're thinking about Bigfoot, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything goes. What do we know for sure?
Yeah. But when you brought that up, man, I mean, that's like dead on, other than the cowbells.
That'd be a little odd if you heard the cowbell. You got Chris walking out there going, more cowbell.
Yeah, and if anybody's ever recorded that in our audience or some future, you're listening to this 10 years from now and you've heard this or recorded it, God, get a hold of me. Super interested. Yeah, that's just amazing. So what other what time we got?
It's like 7:40.
You yell when you got to go, DA.
Okay. Yeah, I got about 3 or 4 more minutes before I got to take off.
Oh, geez. Well,
I wish I could hang out. If I didn't have my show already scheduled for tonight, I'd be happy to hang out.
You know when somebody tells you that, you don't even want to talk to them anymore. It's like, I only got 3 or 4 minutes. Like, get out of here now. Then. What the heck are we getting? What are we going to get into in 3 minutes? So what inspired you to write your book, and where can they get a hold of you? That's what you can do in the next 3 or 4 minutes.
Well, I've wanted to be a writer since I was a kid, and that when I was a young man and first saw the Patterson-Gimlin footage, and really got me involved in cryptids, and of course, this old show, The Night Stalker with Darren McGavin, that made me want to write horror. But as my love for cryptids grew, the two kind of naturally connected. I've done cryptid research for the better part of the last 40 years, and all the research I've done has gone into creating the behaviors of the creatures in the books. So while the books are works of fiction, the behaviors are based on multiple accounts that I've talked to people over the last few decades. But you can find all of my books at daroberts.net. They're all available on Amazon as well. And if you want to check out our podcast, it's called DAX Machina. It's every Wednesday and Saturday night at 8 p.m. Central. And you just go to YouTube and look up DAX Machina podcast or D.A. Roberts author. Either one will take you right to it.
I just realized that we have a competing podcast. Give him the hook, Alex.
Get out of here.
Give him the hook. Give him that big hook. Come on. Oh, jeez. Nice.
Give me the sign against evil.
Yes. Yeah, we're also competing with 10,000 other podcasts.
True.
Probably. I don't know how many.
But hey, they can watch yours live and catch mine in a rerun, or vice versa.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't view.
Nice.
I don't view myself as being in competition with anybody.
No.
The only person I'm trying to be better than is the guy I was yesterday.
Yeah, that's our attitude too. Could care less, but Alex said, "Nice save, DA. Nice save."
Cliff
Well, thank you
arrived.
for coming on.
The man, the legend.
Well, thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for
Yeah,
hanging
the man,
on
the
there with us,
legend.
DA.
And remember, next time you come on, we want to see a different hat.
Absolutely, I've got plenty of them.
All right, Heisenberg of the Bigfoot world. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Have a
All
good
right,
night.
Bye. Oh, he's awesome.
All right, you ready to have Cliff on?
Yeah, if he's available.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Let's get him on. Hey,
Hey,
Cliff.
Hello.
You don't need any introduction, but I feel kind of a remiss. So, Cliff, nobody knows who he is.
Some nerd.
Star of Finding Bigfoot for how many seasons?
Plenty.
Too many.
Plenty. Yeah, absolutely.
12, 13,
I don't know.
14.
Yeah, I mean, as well as anybody, seasons are something made up by the network, in
Yeah,
order to
well,
pay you more or less.
Lots of
Yep.
years. Lots
Yeah.
of years. And he's got a podcast. It's a really popular podcast, Bigfoot and Beyond. He does with Bobo.
Mm-hmm.
He owns the beautiful museum in Boring, Oregon, called the North American Bigfoot Center. Do not get confused with the North American Bigfoot Center.
I don't know. Sounds confusing.
Well, there is
Sounds
one.
very
That's-
confusing.
Yeah, no. But, and obviously, Cliff is also a very talented musician.
Oh,
Say
I didn't
goodbye.
know that.
But we should should make you prove that on a live pod. We should make you prove that on the exit. You should sing us out.
Oh well, I'm not an accomplished singer.
Well, guitarist. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a guitarist. Yeah,
guitarist. Yeah. And you're in a band too, right?
No, I'm not in like a formal band. There's a couple other players that I get together with and read through charts and stuff, and kind of goof around sort of thing. I don't really have time. I don't even have time to do what I'm already doing.
No, I know. And I was very thankful too that you were willing to even do our podcast because I know you got your hands full.
Well, you guys are friends. I'm happy to do this sort of thing for friends. Yeah.
No.
Everybody else, you have to be really persistent to nail me down. But
and I was going to say that to everybody. You are an amazing friend, by the way.
Well, thank you. I do my best. It's
you really are.
I actually try hard to do. So
yeah, no, you really are, and I just think the world of you. So let's cover some new ground, something new nobody's talked about. And as you know, I had one of your employees on.
Oh yeah,
Nico.
Nico.
Yeah, and he was awesome. I could
Nico's
just totally see you two hitting it off.
Yeah, Nico's a real solid guy. He's into bushcraft. He likes tracking. He's a train tracker, but he's not a Bigfoot nerd. He's a paleontology nerd.
I know,
and he's got a lot of skills that apply. Like when people bring in strange bones they find in the woods to the shop, and they, what is this? I go, I don't know. Hey, Nico, what is this? And like from across from me, he goes, oh, it's a horse, or what? He just knows these things like that. So he's a wonderful addition to the team, and he's a good guy.
Yeah. So how many employees do you have over there? Nobody ever asked you.
Oh, well, if you count Melissa and I, Melissa's my wife and she's the co-owner. Yep. We are on the employment, roster, so to speak. We get a salary, etc. So 1, 2, 3, we have 5 employees if you count Melissa and I. So
well, it's amazing. Congratulations. Are you planning on growing the museum, or are you just happy the way you are and just gonna change up the exhibits now and then? And
well, a little bit of both. A little bit of both, I think. I would love to have more room. I mean, we have this really cool building. It used to be a motorcycle garage. So it's like 16-foot tall ceilings, and it's a really neat space, but it's a very finite space. And the longer we have it, the more I'm realizing it's small. And we pack a lot of stuff in there. You guys haven't been out there to the shop yet, but we pack a lot of stuff in there. No one's been complaining to us that there's not enough to look at in there by far. Some people are back there for 2.5, 3 hours and still come out and they say, well, I'm going to come back next week to see more. But there's a finite amount of space. So right now we're trying to we have a few more nooks and crannies we can exploit, I guess, to share information on. And then we need to start getting creative about how to utilize our space, because there's a lot. The walls are covered with stuff, but we have 16-foot ceilings. So above these 8-foot tall wooden walls that we built for displays, well, we have another 8 feet on top of that we can do something with. So we just have to get creative with it. Our landlords have kind of suggested that we could add on like another pole building or something, kind of like the Willow Creek Museum did.
Sure.
Something like that. But at the same time, I'm a little hesitant to dump a bunch of money into improving my landlord's building. If I have lovely landlords. I love them. They're fantastic. But if I'm going to dump a bunch of money into a building, it might as well be my own money, or my own building, I should say, because it is my own money, So, yeah.
Well, Jim Myers just bought his building after renting for God knows how many years.
Yeah.
He finally did a deal and bought the building.
Oh, good. I know Lauren Coleman's getting a building for his location in Bangor, Maine as well. Yeah. He's working hard on that. Then I hope to eventually buy a building. Maybe I buy this building. I would love to do something like that.
So Alex, can you throw it up?
Blech.
Sure.
Or it's not what you meant, is it?
Yeah, we need to put a picture up. So you have the world's largest footprint cast collection.
That's arguable. I don't know. It's arguable. I think Dr. Meldrum and I think Jeff has more. I think Jeff has more because I know that whenever I get something that Jeff does not have, I make a copy and I give it to him.
Well, you have the biggest publicly displayed one.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, we are. I was thinking, like, what little nook and cranny in the marketing world can I say about my museum? And I think that the truth is we have the largest public display of Sasquatch-related evidence and artifacts in the world. I think that's to be true because Lauren has more stuff in his museum, but Lauren's museum is more of a cryptozoology umbrella, and under which Sasquatch and other things lie. But for my gig, it's just Bigfoot and hairy hominoids. I know Expedition Bigfoot, the wonderful museum out in Georgia. They have a lot of stuff. I think we probably have more. They have a better laid out space in some ways, and that's one of the neat things. Being a nerd and being well traveled, from jobs and whatever else, I get an opportunity to go around and check out all the local museums. There's a couple I've not been to yet, but for the most part, what I've been seeing I just love every person, whether it's Dave and Melinda out in Georgia, or Lauren, or Mike Rugg, even in Felton, or the Willow Creek Museum. They all have their own flavor, and the flavor is reflecting the owners themselves. And I think that's a really neat thing that I can offer, being a former teacher and a science nerd and all that sort of stuff. You can see that, we kind of have the best, in my opinion. I think we have the best, high school science project on Bigfoot you can find anywhere.
So you had this, so you had the, can you click one of those pictures and expand it, Alex? So you had this dream to do this. No, I didn't
actually. No, I didn't have a dream at all.
Well, I don't mean a dream. I mean, you wanted to do this.
Eventually, yeah. It was actually Dave and Melinda from Expedition Bigfoot. They said, Cliff, you should try this. We're scratching a living, and you have a bunch of stuff lying around, I'm sure, maybe. And I talked to them, and I talked to Lauren, and Lauren was very encouraging to me. And so I said, let's give it a shot, because during finding Bigfoot, you don't make a lot of money on TV. You just don't, especially reality TV. And so, but at the same time, I was still living like I was making, $40,000 a year as a teacher. So I was making, at the end of the show, I was actually making okay money. I'm sure lots of people listening make more money than I did on the show, but still, for me, it was good money. And so I just kind of sat on it all, and I had this lump of money, and I knew that after the show went away, I would have to do something with it. I said, well, I could go back to teaching, but I'd have to go back and renew my credential, and that's probably $7,000 or $10,000 for those 6 units or something. And do I really want to wake up at 5 and deal with bureaucracy and parents and all that sort of stuff? And so, well, let's try this. And I had some encouragement from the other museum owners, and I gave it a shot, and it almost killed me and took all my money, that's for sure. But it's working. And I'm not going to be rich ever. Never was, never will be, but my bills are paid, and I do Bigfoot pretty much full time, and I've got a great team, and we're learning a lot about the Sasquatches in my neck of the woods, and I'm real happy with it.
It doesn't get any better than doing what you love.
Yeah. It's a job, don't get me wrong, but I say this fairly often, especially to the team in the museum, that this is the first job I've ever had that I haven't hated coming in at least one day yet. So
yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's kind of neat.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing. So why are we in this stalemate right now with Bigfoot? We're just on this hump. We can't seem to get past. There hasn't been anything new, amazing that I'm aware of that's really groundbreaking for a while.
Yeah.
We obviously, the Patterson-Gimlin film was amazing. It was like going to the moon. Then we've had other, we had the Skookum cast, or we had this, or we had, we've had these kind of milestone things happen.
Yeah.
But lately we've seemed to be kind of in a stalemate.
Well, I think it's just part of where we are in the whole process of discovery anyway, because we have, thinking about it, we have pretty much all the kinds of spore one could imagine.
Right.
And the spore, of course, is a term, the catch-all term for signs animals leave behind. We have footprints, we have handprints, we have a couple butt prints, we have scrapes in the ground, we have this and that, we have some photographs, we have game cameras, we have a couple decent pieces of footage, we have hair samples, we have a bunch of stuff. So I think at this point we're kind of looking at, well, to go to any significant next step, it's a money barrier at this point. We haven't had a good piece of footage for a while. There's some interesting things out there, but people are just, in this day of misinformation and mental illness and stuff, who knows what's real and what's not anymore. It's really hard to say, all these new pieces of footage and whatever coming out. And so what we really need to do to push the ball down the field is real science, and the real science is real expensive. Yeah. And I think that's part of it, because there are very, very few deep-pocketed individuals willing to throw money at possible leads. Most of the people out there are like you and I, or me, that's fairly, we're not subsistence living, but at the same time, we don't have $100,000 to go lay out to sequence an unknown genome. And I think that's kind of the barrier we've been pushed up against. We have all the easier to get stuff. And now to push the ball further down the field, we need the expensive stuff done. And, I can't do it.
Yeah, well, we'll just think about a DNA test has come way down, but there's still $5,000 for a really good DNA test. That's still a lot of money.
Yeah, it's especially unless you see the Sasquatch itself rubbing its back against a tree. You have a hair that matches primate characteristics, but and a very well-known researcher was talking to me, and he had these samples that he thought there was some spit on. I go, well, how much would you be willing to bet that this is that Sasquatch? I'd be willing to bet anything. I said, great. All we need is $7,000. You go, oh, well, I can't do that.
Anything but $7,000.
Exactly. Anything but that. Yeah. But that's kind of the position we're in, because we could get it done, but that's a lot of money, man. That's a lot of money for everybody, I think.
Well, what if you got a call, and you may get this call someday from a billionaire and says, hey, I'm going to give you $1 billion to divide it up to solve this mystery. What would you kind of do, Cliff?
I have been asked by people with deep pockets. Like, I have this much money, Cliff. What should I do with it? And if that's not enough, how much would it take? And you know what? At this point, it's kind of a random game. Yeah, sure, you can make concerted efforts and stuff, but how far has that gotten so far? Not so far, really. There's been a few isolated situations that either have the opportunity has been blown or missed or something like that. I think that the best thing to do, at this point, it's kind of not even a money game. The money comes into the testing part. We need to get stuff tested, which means that we need to invest time. The researchers, people like Tom Shea, people who are out there on boots on the ground, ear to the ground, following up on everything. Those kind of people are very few and very far between, frankly. We do our best at the museum, but not a lot. I mean, stuff comes into us all the time, but we're talking fresh stuff. Like yesterday, I saw this. Well, that's an opportunity to go out and collect soil samples from various footprints and get them eDNA tested under the right circumstances. So that's not a money thing. That's not $100,000 is going to solve this. That's a patience thing. And when the patience pays off and the persistence of waiting and getting out there and doing it right pays off, then a lump sum of money, it would be very, very useful. But it doesn't need to be $100,000 unless you are so confident in the sample that you can actually, okay, here's $120,000. Let's sequence this genome, which might be necessary if these things are what I think they are, which are a type of Australopithecine, a Paranthropus. So if that's the case, we might be so genetically similar that it would take six figures to get the differences between us and them.
I think you're right there. I think it's going to be very, very subtle, the differences.
Yeah. Well, consider chimpanzees are 94% or 92, 93, I don't know, 90 something percent, exactly the same as us genetically. When people, I'm no weight, blah, 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 relax, everything's cool. We're 60% the same as earthworms. It's cool. So if we're that close to chimpanzees, and I'm right, and these things are Australopithecines of some sort, some Paranthropus, well, that's half the distance back between our last common ancestor with chimpanzees. So we would expect half that difference to be closed. That's like 96, 98%, exactly the same as us. It would be very difficult to discern. So that's where that big lump of money comes into play. But
it would be nice though if there was a pool for just DNA. These $7,000 where a committee could decide, yes, there's enough evidence. This has got a good chance at being authentic. Let's go ahead and throw $7,000.
But the guy I was talking to, he said that, well, there's some money. I'm happy to set it aside for you because I think you're a good chance to use it or whatever. And thank you very much for trusting me. And that was like a year ago. And I speak to this guy occasionally. He says, well, you haven't called me for this. I go, that's because I'm not going to waste your money. If I call you, it's the real deal. And I will not I'm not going to take somebody else's word for this. It's going to be something that I personally observed that I am completely confident in, because there's a lot of mental illness and weirdos and jokers and whatever else out there. I simply cannot trust other people's research when it comes to somebody else's money like that. You think you'd be able, well, it's not your money. What do you care? What do I care? I'm an honest person. That's what I care about. I'm not going to waste somebody else's money on a maybe. If I bring a sample to this guy or anybody else in the world, or spend my own money on it, it's because I saw the Sasquatch do this, and there's no doubt whatsoever in my mind. that's me. I have integrity, and
It
that's what it's
sounds
gonna
like it
take
would
for me.
eat you up if you spent someone else's money
Oh
on
God,
something that nothing came of it.
Absolutely, I feel guilty all the time for stuff I didn't even do. I'm just happy. It's a blessing from my mother. I'm genetically programmed to feel guilt. Yeah. So yeah, and to actually waste somebody's money. If I spent that money on somebody, it came back, and this is, I don't know. It's somebody who grew up in, I don't know, wherever, like whatever country in the world. I can tell the ethnicity of this person. I just feel terrible. Of course. Yeah.
So it almost seems like you need to have the right combination of resources, right? Money, time, and then the training, like,
And luck.
and
luck.
And luck.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah. You need really all four.
You really do. Yeah. And that's a perfect storm. And that's something money can't buy. I think I've positioned myself to be in the place that I need to be, because if somebody saw a Sasquatch, down in Malala today, they might have heard of the museum at this point, and they would reach out to me. It's like, hey, well, I saw this, and I can go down and collect the samples and do my diligence and then have this sample. And I've got a few people that might be willing to kick in some money for a sample like that if I have the confidence in it. And for me, it's going to take more than, some guy's word. I'm going to have to see the footprints in the ground, think they're real, and then collect the samples myself.
Yeah. So, Caillou had an interesting question, and I've known you enough. I don't know what your answer is going to be here, but he said, "How has your opinion changed over the years from when you first got involved in this to today?"
The first thing that comes to my mind, my opinion has changed definitely, because now I realize how little I know. But I suppose that's just growing older, isn't it? You'll understand this someday, Alex. Yeah, like the longer I've been doing this, my opinion has changed in a lot of ways. I was once a staunch pro-kill person, then I went to anti-kill, and now I'm somewhere in the middle. I realize that killing one will be necessary, and it's going to be unfortunate, but that's the only way forward. There is no other way around it. I didn't write the rules. I just know what rules I have to follow for science. I do think that I think that there's fewer of them than I used to think. I think there's probably a few more than Dr. Meldrum thinks, but he's in the ballpark. I think he's on the low end of the scale. I think there's probably a few more than that, but they're still extraordinarily rare animals. I also think that that they are way more geographically stationary, I think, than most people give them credit for, and certainly I did for a long time. I think that their territory range is probably small, like somewhere in the like 5 to 15 miles on a side in like high resource areas. I think that's a reasonable guess, and it's still a giant area. I mean, to use a Stephen Wright joke, it's a small world, but I wouldn't want to paint it. When it comes down to it, like those, like that area, like a 10 mile by a 10 mile area, it's 100 square miles. Yeah, well, that's a small area. Yeah, you go walk it. It's not that small, but that really helps. That helps us focus our attention. Though I think that's something that has changed in my opinions over the years. This isn't really I guess it's associated with opinion. I am much less interested in what other people are doing now. I think that's something too, because like most Bigfooters, especially in the beginning days or years of doing it, you're relying on other people going out and finding stuff, because almost nothing ever happens in Bigfoot, right? We were lamenting that earlier in this very same program. And that's why Bigfooters tend to be gossipy and talk about each other, because nothing happens with the animals, and you got to talk about something because you love the subject. So they start gossiping about each other. Yeah. So I'm trying to just remove myself from all of that nonsense and, over the fence chit chat and stuff like that. So I'm really more focused on what I'm doing and not what other people are doing. Which is problematic, because people always ask me about what other people are doing. I don't know. I don't pay attention. I don't listen. I don't listen to podcasts. I don't even listen to my podcast. I'm there when we record it, but I don't remember it. I don't watch television shows. I don't do any of this stuff, man. I'm so focused on what I'm doing and what little free time I do have that I just don't have time for what other people are doing. If something's cool, I'll probably hear about it at some point. But if something's bad, will I hear about it being a fake? I don't know. I'd hope so. So I don't know. That's how I've changed. Not all those are opinions, I admit. So I kind of went off the course for the question, I suppose. But,
well, let's delve a little deeper in some of the things you mentioned. You mentioned you think they're more geographically stable, and they're not migrating. That hundreds of miles, thousands
Some
of
are.
miles.
Well, not
But-
hundreds of miles. No, not hundreds of miles. I think that's ridiculous.
But do you
The-
think? But here's my question, Cliff.
Mhm.
Do you think it's possibly a little different in the middle of the country, where we have the extreme swings in weather, versus the Pacific Northwest?
No.
Do you think there's differences, or do you think they're all pretty much exactly the same?
Oh,
no matter
no,
what-
no, they're certainly not exactly the same. And I think that's human
Okay.
thinking there. And that's just something that's a trap that a lot of Bigfooters fall into as well. They do this, they do that, do they? Don't know. Being so they're long-lived species, they have they're the big territory, 10, 15, 20 miles on a side. It's pretty big, when it comes to territory. You would expect a lot of idiosyncrasies in the species. The individuals are going to be individuals. Some are going to like this, some are going to be like that. Just like no two people look the same, no two Sasquatches are going to look the same. That's a genetic thing, but we would expect their behavior to mirror that. They do this, they like berry brambles, the nest down in. Well, a couple of them probably do. Do they all?
Yeah.
I think that's a stretch. I don't know. They can't all like it because that sort of resource isn't available everywhere, right? So,
Well, let's go a little deep. Okay, so what you're
Mhm.
saying is there's a lot of individualism, and that makes the whole mystery harder to solve because only some might use these berry brambles for a
Mhm.
nest where they don't all. You know what I'm saying? That's got it does make the mystery harder to
Can't
solve.
generalize it.
The individualism.
It's
It makes
more
the people who are crunching data have a bigger hill to climb.
Yeah.
Because the 10 that's why when you look at the BFRO's database, for example, there's 75,000 raw reports in there. It's kind of a lot. That much data is useful for some things, but then I think it's not very useful for others. That's why I advocate researchers to stay close to home. Stay close to home. Find an area within an hour or two of where you live. If you're lucky enough to live in good habitat, find the closest spot you can and keep hitting it again and again and learn about those Bigfoots.
Yeah.
Those are the most important Bigfoots for you, the ones closest to you that you can get to most often. When I lived in Long Beach, California, I had to drive 12 hours to get up the bluff, and then like the Siskiyous, I had to drive 6 hours to get up to the Sierras, four to the Southern Sierras, that kind of stuff. Well, that's all great, but it's a lot of gas, it's a lot of time, and I can't hit it every weekend. Right now, I'm out in the field probably once a week, sometimes once every other week, sometimes twice in the same week. And because my spots are between 15 minutes and 45 minutes away, the two closest, most easily accessible spots. And I've got some spots an hour, 20 minutes away, and I like hitting those too. But those are the spots where I'm collecting data so I can learn about those Bigfoots. Finding Bigfoot was great. Traveling the country and learning about the similarities between Sasquatches and habitats and needs and all that stuff was a really wonderful learning experience I wouldn't trade for anything. I learned a tremendous amount about the species by doing that. But now I have that generalized information. Let's use that specifically to target the areas that I am interested in and learn about what those 3 or 4 or 5 Bigfoots are doing. I've got 4 spots that I hit on a regular basis. That's probably 3 or 4 or 5 Bigfoots at the most. So let's find out what those guys are doing.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of get into the human and ape argument. And I hate this argument because we're apes.
Yeah, it doesn't make any difference. Is that a coyote or a canine? Well, so what a completely meaningless question. We are basically apes. We are technically apes. Look around. We got shoulders for brachiation. That's one of the definitions of an ape. We have fingers. We don't have a tail, so we're not a monkey, right? We are that's our biological family. And I don't see why people are that. I don't see why that thing exists and makes people mad. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. We're a weird ape, we really are. Sasquatches are a different kind of weird ape, and gorillas are another kind of weird ape, and chimpanzees are another. We're all weird in our own way. But the whole thing, we're like, no, they're human. Well, they are not human. I don't know any human that's 8 feet tall, covered in hair, that their thumb doesn't work like us, that has midfoot flexibility. They are not Homo sapiens. There's just it's a ridiculous thing to say. And I'll go further. I will say that to treat them as if they were human is disrespectful, because people point at me and they say, "Oh, by calling them an ape, you're being disrespectful." No, by treating them as a human, you are disrespecting them. because they don't have the same needs as humans do. We are a material based, like we have material culture. They don't have that. We are peculiar. We think that jobs and taxes are a good idea. They don't have that. You know, like I always use the dog metaphor. Like, to treat your dog as a human, that makes us feel good, right? I love my dog, my Sochi dog. But to treat her as a human might make me feel good, but it could end up killing her, because dogs chocolate is deadly to them. Onions are deadly to them. I like chocolate and onions, perhaps not together, but they're both on my list, right? So you should not treat Sasquatches like humans. They are not. And I think to treat them as us is disrespectful to them. They are different. They are not this or that. They are Sasquatches. And that itself is valuable. We don't need to satisfy our human mind, our mental situation of putting it in this box. Or how about a new box? How about the Sasquatch box? They're Sasquatches. That's what they are.
Yeah. So I was on some podcasts the other day, and we were talking about intelligence. And I said, I mean, this is my answer and my feeling, and you can disagree with me, but I think that in their environment, they are far more intelligent than we are in their environment, in the woods. So they're just like a dolphin in the ocean is a mammal, it's warm-blooded, but it can do 3D sonar and, create 3D images in its head. And it's adapted so well to its environment. But if you take a dolphin and throw it on land, it can't do much, right?
Yeah.
And I think a Sasquatch is kind of like that. I mean,
yeah.
I think of them as dolphins in the woods.
Yeah. And again, this is another fantastic example of our species-centric thinking. This whole human ape thing is exactly the same sort of thing. We are looking for intelligence in a way that we recognize. And that's my fault with looking for extraterrestrial intelligence or measuring intelligence in other animals. And there are some commonalities, and we can certainly talk about those. But I think you're comparing apples to oranges in some cases. They are perfectly adapted for their situation and what they need. They are clever. I'm sure they're clever. I'm sure they have probably a higher intelligence than even chimpanzees or orangutans. Orangutans are considered generally the smartest of the great apes. I know that they are. Nico, who you mentioned earlier, he worked at a zoo, and they had a problem with the orangutans there because one of them would find things on the ground that maybe the zoo customers would put in like paper clips and stuff, and they would pick locks to get out of his enclosure, leave the enclosure, go raid the food cabinet, come back and relock itself into the enclosure. Like that kind of intelligence. Yeah, and people say, "Oh, these dumb apes." Oh my gosh, you don't know what you're talking about if you think apes are dumb. The apes are fantastic animals, super clever, super smart. And we would expect Sasquatches to have a really high intelligence, not human level, because again, we're measuring things different. We're not, right. They're not using fire. They're not doing that kind of stuff. They're not fashioning tools, anything beyond they use tools, but fashioning tools and spear points and stuff, they're not doing that stuff. We know about it by now.
Well, it's because they don't need to.
No, they don't need to. Exactly. So what do they use their intelligence for? Well, for ambush hunting and spying on things and sneaking around. And, and also I want to point out that we know that they don't have this human aspect of intelligence because you can see the shape of their brain case. That wonderful mosaic photograph that Bill Munns has on his website, the Munns report, where it's like frame by frame by frame of Patty turning her head to look at the camera. So you get all these different perspectives on her head as she turns. And as she turns, one of the things, and Grover Krantz actually acknowledged this in his book, he says he was stunned at the 90-degree angle that happened right above her brow ridge. So as she turns her head, her face is really flat, and then it appears almost a 90-degree angle to the back of the head where the possible sagittal crest is, or the hair tuft, or whatever is going on back there. That tells you right there, they're missing this part of their brain. They don't have it, or it's entirely different. See, humans have this big bulbous thing above our eyes. We're the only ape that has that. And that's for the frontal cortex, where most of the human things happen in our brain. So they don't have that. And yeah, actually, they probably have a big brain, but it's not as big as you'd think. because again, by using that one composite photograph of all those different pictures being put together, you can see a couple other interesting features, like there's indications of a possible sagittal crest. Well, that's interesting because that means that most of the stuff up here is going to be muscle mass. And I think this is really telling too. You can see the zygomatic arches, like these really strong, pronounced arches over here. And those are also attachments for chewing muscles. So we can look at her head and compare it to like a paranthropus skull and see that, oh yeah, even though the head may be this big, a huge chunk of that is actually muscle for chewing. So her brain case is not as large as a lot of people think it is. There's no reason to think that Sasquatches are all that super smart. Certainly higher than most other apes, probably higher than orangutans. I'm going to give them that credit, but they're not doing the human stuff because the human stuff happens here in this part of the brain, and they just don't have it very like a well-developed section of the brain like that.
See, that's probably new information for a lot of people.
I'm sure I'll get a lot of flack and hate. And
No.
Whenever I open my mouth, somebody hates me for something.
No, I mean, that's new information because, it's just, they may have other areas of their brain that are bigger than ours in other areas.
I think a lot of what they do is misinterpreted as intelligence, and it's actually strength. I think that their strength overcompensates. Yeah. And a lot of people say, oh, they have to be so smart for staying out of sight and all this. Well, not really. That's strength for the most part. I mean, bears stay out of sight, and people say, oh, they have to be really smart because people rarely see them. I say, well, maybe. And like when they come into the museum, I always say, how many, you grew up in Oregon, right? They go, oh yeah, I grew up in Oregon or Washington, about the same numbers. I go, great. How many bear have you seen in your entire life? And they go, oh, I've seen a lot. I hunt bear. And so great. Put a number on it. How many bear have you seen? Yeah. They say, oh, I've seen more than a dozen, probably almost 20. So, well, that's cute because there's 35,000 of them in Oregon. And are we going to say that, oh, well, they must be extraordinarily intelligent to stay out of sight as well?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're smart. They're really smart dogs is what bears basically are at the end of the day. But is that intelligence? Because you'd have to say it was if we're going to equate that with the Sasquatch thing.
Yeah. And then there's black bears. We have 40,000 here too. Most people have never seen one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I can interview 20 people and one out of maybe 20 has had a good black bear sighting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read a wonderful book. It's on the shelf over here behind me, actually. It's called, I think, Shadows in the Forest by a team of black bear biologists. And they studied like 260 or 360 of these things over 13 years. And it's the shadows in the forest. It says it all. They're rarely seen, rarely observed, and very, very elusive animals.
Yep. And the ones they do see are usually ones that have been habituated by people.
Yeah, very.
Where they've been being fed on a regular basis, and they're a little less shy. But black bears operate on fear. It's been their survival mechanism.
Yeah, Sasquatches would probably fall in that basket as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think Sasquatches, I don't know if you agree with that, but I think they operate on a lot of fear.
Oh, sure. Like, how a lot of, not a ton of reports, this isn't like 5 or 10% of reports or something, but I think if you've been looking into the thing for long enough, you have run across a report of one of them smiling at you or heard some reports of them smiling. That they're not smiling at you. That is a stress reaction. That is grimacing. They are showing you their teeth for a reason. They are afraid of us. Yeah. For good reason. I'm afraid of us,
You make a good point there. I'd actually, if I'm going to run into some people in the woods, I think I'd rather run into Bigfoot.
I'd rather run into almost anything in the woods and like hiking a trail and running across, some dude out there in his like tidy whities and a wife beater would be the scariest thing I can imagine, I would way rather, Anyway.
Yeah, Blaine has a couple of those stories.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he? Yeah. But it's so true. But these are the common things that we thrash around, and you have a good way of, just kind of putting it in very simple terms and getting it across to people and getting people's light bulbs to go off. What are some of the other things that you feel really strong about, about the creatures themselves, that you've just kind of formed an inference, an opinion? What are some other things?
Well, something I feel strong about is that we need to move past sighting reports. That's not really about the creatures. It's more about the researchers, I think. I think that we need to stop asking the question if they're real and go to the place about how they live instead of if they live. And the only way to do that is treat them like another biological species and basically start collecting data as such. Most wildlife biologists do not study animals, whether bears or wolverines or anything really, by observing them with their eyes. They look for a sign of them and they piece together the puzzle left behind by them. And I think that's where we need to go at this point. We need an army of citizen scientists willing to step forward and collect data and share it amongst yourselves. I wouldn't recommend putting it on Facebook and all that sort of stuff because, pearls before swine kind of thing. Share it with other people who are maybe working in your same area that you trust, and pool your resources and your data and try to see what's going on with these things. So, I mean, that's where I am at this point. That's what I probably feel most strongly about is a sighting is fine. It tells you where and when, and that's about it, unless they are observed doing something interesting, like carrying something or maybe clapping or some hand gesture or something like that, but beyond that, sighting reports are just basically dots on the map, where and when one was supposedly observed. But
are you excited about some of the new like the Bigfoot mapping project and the gentleman in England is doing, where they're taking all of the sighting data and doing GIS data, combining it?
Yeah, it's been done before. We'll see, and that so far the result, I mean, I don't know anybody in any specific results. Okay. I also don't know anybody in particular that's doing this. I've had a few email conversations, but I don't remember, again, I'm mostly focused on what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on out there, but what few results I've seen so far is like, okay, yeah, they're seen within 2 miles of salmon bearing streams. Probably could have guessed that, right? I'm not aware of anything extraordinary or completely surprising that has come from that. But, that's not my gig. That's not my thing. I don't know much about it. I will let them do it, and maybe something will come up, in which case I encourage them to publish it. I know Dr. Meldrum would love to have it in the RHI, the Relic Hominoid Inquiry, and then let it undergo peer review to see if it stands up. And if it doesn't, then they can redo the hypothesis and try again. That's not really my thing. So I don't know what's going on. Again, I don't pay attention much out there because I don't know most of the players. I don't know if they're legit. I don't know if their standardized methods are any good. I don't know. A lot of people see things that aren't Bigfoots and say they're Bigfoots, and a lot of well-meaning people are misidentifying. You see what I mean? Like, it's just so squishy. It's squishy. The only person's interpretation I can even kind of rely on is my own. So I'm I'm full of faults and bad observations too sometimes. It's just the way it is. So I'm trying to focus on what I'm doing instead of what other people are doing.
So it sounds like, though, if you had any advice for people, it's if you could treat it like, okay, let's pretend for a moment this is 100% proven animal. How would we study it? Just like any other animal.
Yeah.
We would collect all this hard evidence. We would collect samples.
And sighting reports are a good start. But I think for a lot of researchers, it starts and stops there.
It doesn't continue from there.
Yeah. And sighting dots on a map are they tell us where to start looking for those other things that I think we need to go to next. Yeah, well, that's just me though. Look, I know I'm blabbing and talking and I've got a lot of friends and whatever else, but at the end of the day, I'm a quiet, introverted homebody. I would much rather prefer to walk alone for 2 miles on a trail looking for footprints than to go on some expedition with 12 people. And whether or not they get sounds or sightings or whatever, I would rather spend time alone in the woods. And so, but other people, for whatever reason, are extroverts and they love to be around people all the time. I'll never understand it, but it's true. And you probably know some yourself. And those people, then I can totally see how they get like it feeds their soul in a way to interview witnesses and all this sort of stuff. That's just not me. I best out calling witnesses, and that sort of stuff. I'm good at talking, but I've said this on my own podcast. I am a professional extrovert, but in real life, I'm an introvert that would much rather, sit down with 1 or 2 other people and have a beer and talk about things that way, as opposed to seeking other people to talk to,
Well, let me ask you this, Cliff. Doug had mentioned, how DNA, the cost has dropped significantly.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's still out of reach for, most cases. But are you excited about any new technology coming out, any new tech to collect better data when people
How about AI? Could that aid our search
I don't know. I don't
in
know.
the
I'm not really the
future?
ins and outs of it, but then what did what's his name? Isaac, that dude that helped Jeff and Munns out with
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, with the Patterson
with
footage.
the Proof
Yes.
is Out There show.
Yes.
That
Yep.
was phenomenal. I didn't know that existed. So I mean, so I think that a lot of people out there have really interesting technology that can be utilized.
Cliff,
I
do
didn't
you
know.
want to explain what that was, what they did
Yeah,
in that show?
that was Isaac Tien.
Yeah, Isaac Tien. He came into the shop. Actually, I have his number, and I said, "Yeah, if you ever need me for something," I said, "Well, I don't even." It's like given a multi-tool, and it's like, well, I don't know what it can do. So I don't know. You tell me how I can help you is what I'm thinking with Isaac. But basically what they did is they took various versions of the Patterson Gimlin film and kind of laid them over each other. But they had an AI program, a script go through there and look at all the different versions, and anything that was in, I think most of the versions they kept in, and anything that was in one or two of the versions they pulled out, assuming it was a blemish of some sort. And through this script, this computer program, they basically took out all the artifacts, or the vast majority of the artifacts, and they gave us the clearest, most precise version of the PG film outside of the original that anyone has ever seen. And it was phenomenal. I never actually saw the program. I was interviewed for it. I don't even know if I got played for it or not. But I have the footage, the important part, which is Dr. Meldrum and Bill Munns and Isaac around the monitor pointing things out that they can observe that were never seen before. Things like patches on the skin where it looked like there was less hair, which same places we would have less hair because our hands rub against our thighs or whatever. That was fantastic. So when you ask me about technology that can be utilized, I'm afraid I don't know. I mean, I think the most exciting technology is the stuff I've never heard about being used in an exciting way by these geniuses who can wield these weapons appropriately.
I think within 2 years, AI might help us.
We'll see. I know that people were saying that people should apply the AI to the framing footage and all this other stuff, but AI fills in the gaps with imaginary stuff. So I don't think it can be used effectively. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's an AI PhD out listening or whatever right now. I don't think AI can be used effectively on photographs and film because of that. Now what Isaac did was different. That's not filling in the gaps. That's actually removing things and we had multiple versions of the footage, which is
let's talk about the frame stacking for a minute, because that was my original idea in 2005. I came to Bill with that idea.
Well, now didn't what was his name? Owen Caddy. He did that with the PG film as well back in he presented on it.
Yeah, I don't think, well,
it's a little different. He did something like that.
He did microscopic. He took a microscope, an endoscopic microscope, and basically got it on the film to magnify the film.
Well, yeah, he layered over the green, the red, and I think the yellow or whatever.
He did something
like that.
Yeah. I was a pioneer on frame stacking many years ago. And just nobody ever did anything with it.
Right. Well, it's an interesting technology that I didn't know existed.
Yeah, I was enhancing video with it, in doing things with video by taking all of the subframes in a frame of video and stacking them, and really making blurry images get pretty clear. Right. It's limited. Once again, everything's limited. But when Isaac, and there's collective, everybody's working on the same kind of crap. But when he took the film and just laid all of the different grains, and then they kind of cancel each other out.
Yeah, they take
and
out
that's
the
what brought out. Yeah, right. So it's a canceling process. It's very weird. You would think if you had stack a bunch of grainy pieces of footage together, you're going to make it more grainy. That's what your brain would think, but it does the opposite. So
I think the key there is that they were removing artifacts as opposed to adding things in, like a lot of AI.
No, it cancels. Yeah. It actually cancels each artifact or layer of different copies cancel out each other.
Yeah.
One covers up. One's got a little piece of dust, but the other one didn't. So it covers up that dust.
Right.
Or that scratch or that grain or whatever it was. So it's fascinating. And I do think the Patterson Gimlin footage has more to tell us. I don't know what it is yet. There's something there. We just don't know what it is, you know.
Right. It takes somebody looking at it a little bit different than everybody else has before.
Yeah, different angle.
Yeah.
What about we have a listener. He was mentioning drones, and you can combine that with like image recognition. If you could,
yes.
If you could train an AI to, let's say use Patty as kind of a way to identify what a Sasquatch.
Go search.
There's people working on that right now. Actually, Rob Evans is working on that right now. He's a friend. I've done some stuff in the field. That reboot Finding Bigfoot thing, they put their eyes on a Sasquatch on that episode through the drone, and just a series of missteps and technology glitches. We didn't get it, but they put their eyes on a Sasquatch in that episode, and I think that is going to hold a lot of promise. And even just putting a therm on a drone, I think is a step forward as well. Yeah, I was just doing that this past weekend. On Monday night, I was out doing that with the team, and a good friend of mine is a pilot, has a drone with a therm on it, and we're just out there goofing around because this particular location is a very closed location. It's private land. No one's going to be there, and it's not that big of an area. And we were just poking around to see what we can do, sending teams out. They go, I'm hearing a noise. I think it's a deer. And they would send the drone out. Yep, deer, and all that sort of stuff. He'd fly around, find us immediately. I think drones with therms, you're going to get a thermal video of a Sasquatch, which is going to prove anything to anybody. But it might help us locate them to try to get closer, to get better footage, or to sample maybe, or maybe even some sort of dart situation, not to tranquilize them or anything, but like maybe a sample. I think Stacy Brown was working with Todd Disotell many years ago, and he had some sort of hollow bullet. I'm not a gun guy. I don't know. Stacy knows more about this than me. And he was going to shoot it, and it goes and takes a sample and drops off.
A biopsy bullet. Yep.
There you go. So he was working with some of that stuff. I think that kind of stuff might yield some interesting results at some point.
Yeah. If you could picture a drone that would have a 10-hour battery life. Okay. Mm-hmm. We're not there yet, at least in the civilian realm, but one that then has AI connected to the camera system. Mm-hmm. So it can go and search and then recognize. So that's where AI could be really handy when you combine it with cameras. Yeah. I mean, it could go and search, totally autonomous by itself.
Like piloting it by itself would be great. I know Rob is working on some AI scripts to identify animals by their heat signature. Rob Evans, and we had him on we had him on the podcast. I don't know when it was, but Bigfoot and Beyond, you can go dig through the archives and find Rob Evans is his name. And he talks about the technology that he is hoping to utilize. And he has like some of the most advanced drones available to civilians at this point, because he has the money and he has deep pockets, I to some degree, enough to play around with this sort of thing. And he also has programming experience, because he worked for Microsoft for a long time, I guess. Mm-hmm. So he is working on AI, and he's been successful to the point where he identified a bear just by getting a partial face shot from like 400 or 500 feet up in the air. He got, and they, what is that? And the AI scripted it, and it turned out it was a bear, and he was right, because they got a good shot at it later. There are other situations, and Rob mentions this in the podcast, which is the only reason I'm saying this out loud here. He was working with another guy who does this same sort of AI script stuff for game cameras. And they were talking, and they're comparing notes about the script and the program that they use to, identify the animals. And this guy, he works for a company that I guess they get 10,000 or 12,000 pictures from this university, and they run it through the script. And then the script identifies the animals in it, and everything that it cannot identify, it goes into a different pile. And then the humans go back and identify that. And while they're talking, and again, this is on the podcast, you can go hear Rob's version of it, which is probably more accurate than mine, straight from his mouth. And they were talking, what are you doing your thing for? Oh, laugh, and I'm doing it for Sasquatches. And this guy with the trail camera thing goes, oh yeah, we've got kind of a lot of pictures of those. But they don't belong to us. And so why don't you release them? They don't belong to us. They belong to the universities and the other whatevers, which is a total missed opportunity, because the universities would just think that, oh, somebody's hoaxing us, grad students run around in a suit or whatever. But, if like Humboldt State had 2 out of the last 50,000 pictures, and Washington State has another 3 out of the last 50,000 pictures, they started comparing notes. If they took this at all seriously and started comparing notes with one another in this like private little chat somewhere, we could actually make some progress, because game cameras do work on Sasquatches. I've seen pictures and I'm completely convinced are real. Most of them are not public, and I think that this guy is saying, oh yeah, we've got a bunch of pictures of Sasquatches, but I can't release them because they're not mine, and this is my living, right? So anyway, I think that kind of AI stuff is really interesting too.
Yeah, and there's no doubt there's going to be some new camera technology that's going to be released soon. You just know there is.
There was one I got a few years ago that I've never seen anybody do anything with, and it was a really weird camera. Doug, I bet you're kind of mind that you would probably remember this. I remember it was like an SLR camera or DSLR camera, but the body was slanted, and the thing and the lens came out like that. And the deal with these things is that if you took a picture, on the computer itself, you can, if you have a touch screen, touch part of the picture, and that part of the picture would come into focus. And if that's the case, that would pretty much completely alleviate blob squatches. Yeah. If people were walking around with these things, because blob squatches are blurry, right? And so if you can take a picture and by manipulating the software to look at the picture with, you can make any part of that picture come into perfect focus. That might get us somewhere as well. But these cameras,
it's capturing all of the data.
Right, all of the data, all at once, all in focus. That's the key.
Yep, and that's as storage becomes cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Those kind of things are going to be. We're all going to have them because it's going to be. It's going to be cheap. The other thing we're all going to end up having is massive ISO speed, which we'll be able to see. Every camera will be able to see in total darkness, in color.
Yeah, they already have the color night vision stuff instead of the green. Yeah. I think that's a really interesting technology. Yeah. I mean, it's better or not than the green, better than the green one or not. I don't know about that, but it's interesting. It's
interesting because once again, here's what's interesting, Cliff. Once everybody owns it on their cell phone, that's when it'll get interesting. Yeah. As more and more of this kind of cool, you get an ISO of 458,000 on your cell phone, you're going to be able to see and take photos in total darkness, just like it was daytime. And if everybody's got it, well, then that's going to up the odds of, getting a good photo.
Right.
Now, people were asking, and I've heard this before, Cliff, do you think there's any validity to the Sasquatch picking up on electronics, whether they can hear it or, pick up on the, I don't know, what do you call it? The infrared or whatever, and therefore avoid that area?
I think that they I'm guessing that they hear like the high pitched electronic buzz, and it doesn't happen so much anymore. But I remember when I was a little boy, I could tell if the television was on in the other room, even if the volume was all the way down, because I could hear the whine, so to speak. And I suspect they can do this. And one gentleman out in Wisconsin, I don't think he's doing Bigfoot stuff anymore, but he was thinking about this as well. So he bought a bunch of different game cameras, like 10 or 12 or more different kinds of game cameras, and then listened to them in frequencies that were above human hearing. So the ultrasonic frequencies.
Cool.
Yeah. And he found that they all pretty much scream. They all pretty much are very, very loud. Except for that one, the Hyperfire Reconics apparently was pretty quiet. So he invested a ton of money in those, and those were like $600 a pop, man. And I don't think he ever got any results with those. But on the other hand of that, I've seen some pretty good game camera pictures that I think are legitimate of Sasquatches, and not one of them was taken on a Reconics. Every one was like on this $100 Moultrie sort of thing, or that kind of that. But I think it's a numbers game. I think it's a numbers game more than a kind of electronics you have. And a lot of people are kind of confused about the passive IR stuff that's on these trail cameras. People say, oh, they can see the IR beam. There is no IR beam. It detects infrared in front of the camera. It doesn't emit anything. And as evidence of that, take your night vision and go out and look at your camera at night. You're not going to see anything until it flashes. There is no beam that they can see. So what else could it be? It could be smell, but they don't have the anatomy to think that they have a tremendous sense of smell, like wolves or deer or something like that. They have a flat face with a flat nose. They don't have extended room for like nerve endings for
the olfactory.
Yeah,
I wouldn't think would be that.
So that extent, probably not smelling. They're probably hearing. In fact, that's something else that I think that I've that's part of my model. I'm not so sure I've learned it. I mean, or it's just something that it's part of my Sasquatch model, because we all have a model of what we think Sasquatches are or do or something. And my current model tells me that they're very, very dependent on what they hear, which it falls right in line with like mountain gorillas, for example. Mountain gorillas keep track of every other troop member by listening for them because they can't see them all the time in the places they live. And I think that seems to be the case with Sasquatches as well, as far as I can tell by my own observations of being around them, I think, and like they will follow you, but if you sit still. We had this case, actually, I don't know if Nico told you when he was on the show, but he saw one in August at one of our research locations.
Yeah.
And so when they were out doing, I was flying back from my gig. I couldn't go out with them, unfortunately. But when they were out there, what they would do, they'd walk for a while and they would hear these things. And it seemed like they were being followed, but they didn't know they were Sasquatch. They thought maybe deer or something. They didn't know what they were listening to at the time. And so what they would do periodically is sit down. They would sit down and just be still. And then after a few minutes of sitting down, these things started moving around almost in an agitated way to try to figure out where they went, because I think that they were listening for them. And when they couldn't hear them move or speak anymore, they said, well, where did they go? Did I lose track of them? And then they had to figure it out because their existence depends on it, And I think that Sasquatches are, and also I've noticed that the places where I've either run across footprint tracks or that I think that there's one around, maybe I hear one or a knock or something like that. A lot of them, or when I saw one, those places are very, very quiet. Like extraordinarily quiet. And I think that's part of the reason that Sasquatches are there, because they're pretty slinky in the woods. They don't make a lot of noise unless they make an accident some sort and they make a mistake. And I think that they like those quiet areas because that's how they observe you. I know a lot. Yeah. I've been out with researchers that say, oh, they're watching.
I think you're dead on the hearing.
Oh, yeah. I've been out with people that say, oh, they're watching us right now. And I said, I don't think so. Even if they are here, they're listening for us right now.
Dead on.
I don't think they need to see you to know what you're up to.
The other thing, let's say they could smell 3 times better than human. That still ain't very good.
No. And all the ape species, including humans, have about the same olfactory sensitivity. And we've dulled ours because we've domesticated ourselves.
Yeah.
But,
well, no doubt they smell better than we do, but I don't think it helps much.
Perhaps,
compared to a hound dog.
Oh, no, nothing at all.
That's like 10,000 times they smell better than we do. I think that a Bigfoot might smell double,
Yeah, because they're not polluted. They're not like desensitized. They're no air pollution, and they depend on that more. And I have a really good sense of smell. When I got COVID, it was one of the things I was so bummed about with long COVID is I couldn't smell things as well anymore. A long time ago. I got it before it was cool, before we had a word for it, like in January 2020, before we knew what the hell was going on. I'm pretty sure I had it then because my sense of smell.
I gotta ask you, do you still have any lingering effects from that? Like one food doesn't taste like it used to?
No, I think I've got it back. I think I've got it back at this point. I mean, that first bout, I'm very tuned into my sense of smell. It's just one of those things. And I didn't feel that I was up to snuff, no pun intended, until the following August or so. And even then I felt I was 90%, but I've got it one other time since then. And it wasn't that bad. I thought it was bad allergies at the time, but it turned out it was COVID. And I think I was just noticing that like in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I feel like I'm back. I feel like I'm finally back.
Well, for me, coffee still doesn't taste good. 2 years now.
No, it's
terrible. I love
coffee.
Total
loss is what that is.
It just tastes horrible.
Yeah. Oh, unfortunate. Well, that's a good excuse to quit it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's good for you, I think.
If you like it, it's good for you.
So what about cold weather? Okay, so you don't have you get snow and you get cold, but it's not like Minnesota in the middle of the Midwest here.
Very few places are like Minnesota.
So how do you think one could use the cold weather either for advancing research or for locating them, or what do you think they do in the in extreme cold?
Well, I think what's your opinion? If you have a tolerance for snow, which I do not, by the way, you can take the boy out of California, but you can't take the California out of the boy, I guess. Like I just really don't like snow at all, and like it's claimed like my wife.
I don't either, Cliff.
Oh God, but the snow could be an advantage if like you're into it, because. Well, let's ask a simple question. What do the deer do in the depths of winter? They go into the cedar swamps. Because cedar has there's something in their tannin that acts as something like a antifreeze in a way. The snow
Sure.
and also the swamp areas, or water keeps moving and the water does not freeze. So
Yeah,
I think,
and well, one thing I was going to add, that there's a lot of peat in those areas too that produce heat in the ground.
there you go.
Yep.
So you have a couple different kinds of antifreeze and some extra heat added. You have water that does not freeze, and all the deer are going there too. Why wouldn't the Sasquatches be there? And when you look at the sighting reports, sure enough, it sure seems that more people are seeing these things in and around the cedar swamps during those times of year than anywhere else. So I think that's what's going on with those sort of things.
I always wonder, how does a deer even survive in 40 below weather? It just amazes me. But they do.
I don't know.
They do. I don't know. And look at their legs, and I'm like, God, you don't even have any fur on your legs, and you think they would just freeze solid and fall off, but they don't. It's crazy.
No. It's a very again. Humans are
Animals,
looking at other animals like they're us. Like, I wouldn't want to. That would kill me. Sure enough, it would kill me. But these deer, the deer are badass when it comes down to it. And Sasquatch are even badder asser.
The animals are metal, man. They're just amazing to me.
Yeah.
It'll be 40 below and there'll be a little bit of open water from some methane springs. And there'll be ducks in there with their feet in this just chilling water all night. And you just wonder, how do they deal with that? But they do.
Yeah, I have no idea.
It's crazy. So people are asking a lot of questions and making comments. Love it.
And thank you very much for listening and caring, I guess, about what I think.
Yeah, but
don't care so much about what I think that you're mad at me for thinking different than you, though. That's my one request for you. A lot of people get mad because I don't agree with them about something. So it's like,
you have to have opinions, or you can't get anywhere without opinions.
I always say, like, I may not agree with you, but doesn't that automatically mean you don't agree with me and I don't care? Like, why do you care?
Yeah.
Like, I never understood that. So I don't know.
So what are your thoughts on communication? Caillou asked a very intelligent question. What are your thoughts on Bigfoot communication? What do you think? What do you think about wood knocks? Are they being made with wood? Are they being made with their vocal folds or cords or hands? So what are your thoughts on those kind of things?
Well, I think they definitely are communicating, and that's to circle back to one of those questions earlier. That's something else that I think is I've come around on. I think differently now on. I don't think they're solitary individuals. I think that they're almost always in a group. Whether or not there more than one Sasquatch is observed at the same time or not, that's a different thing. I think that if there's one in the area, another one is nearby. Now, nearby could be a quarter mile away. It could be a good distance away. I'm not saying in the immediate vicinity within 20 feet or something like that. I'm saying if there's one there, there's probably more than one there. And as evidence of that, I would bring up so many sighting reports where maybe one person's one was observed and then a noise happened and then that one's gone. So they're working together as a team in that way. I have several sighting reports of them hunting cooperatively in that sort of way. Also, if they're knocking and calling, which I think they do, what are they doing it for themselves? Are they talking to themselves? I don't think so. I think that's a human thing. I think that if they're making noise, that puts them at risk because it goes back to that fear thing again. I think that puts them at risk, and they do that under certain circumstances for certain reasons. And certainly they would be doing that for another of their own kind. So I think that is another piece of evidence that they are not solitary individuals. They are actually working in groups in area. But do they wood knock? Absolutely. I have, I think, 2 sighting reports where somebody has observed them hitting a tree with a piece of wood. However, I have 3 sighting reports of them clapping. And gorillas are known to be excellent clappers, I might add. There was a wonderful study published about 6 or 8 years ago, maybe even further, because as I get older, my sense of time becomes more elastic. But there was a wonderful study about some gorillas in a swamp in Rwanda, and the researchers noticed that when they entered a swamp, the females would clap to warn the other ones. And Bigfoot for field people out there, for the guys and gals out there who do field work, how many times have you shown up to an area, a possible Bigfoot area, and heard a knock upon arrival? Or let me turn that around. How many times has one member of your party left, and maybe you have stayed behind, and you heard a knock after they left? Yep. I think that these things are doing the exact same thing.
Yep, now, you're dead on.
I also don't think that they're always doing a wood on wood or always clapping or always doing their mouth things or anything like that. I think that's a very rigid human way of thinking about things. Again, these things are idiosyncratic. They are individuals. They do things their own way. I think that they do all those things and maybe even more. Rock clacks, all that, and I know they rock clack as well. They've been seen doing it. We have 2 examples of rocks that have been scored to get like hit together, and there's score marks on them. We know they do that, as much as we can know anything about them. But I don't think they always do any one thing. I think that their behavior is varied and whatever they feel like at the time.
Yeah. No, those are good. So, the esteemed Thomas Steenberg is in our audience, which is
I love
cool.
Thomas.
I love him too. I got to get him on.
One of the best researchers out there. One of the best researchers out there. You know,
because Thomas has not had a sighting, and so he's definitely got that very skeptical side. Do you think, Cliff, there's even a slightest chance they do not exist?
No, actually, I don't. No, every once in a while, I chase my own brain on that just for fun, but I just don't see it being possible at this point. Now, mind you, I think I've seen one. It wasn't a great sighting through thermal imager and stuff, but I'm pretty sure I saw one. I've tracked them. I've cast some footprints. I've spoken to thousands of people. I see the reaction of people when they come in the museum, and I show them our Bigfoot statue, and they're covered in hair, their hair's standing up, and piloerection, that's called, or goosebumps and all that jazz. The evidence is too consistent, no matter where or when it is collected, like footprint cast stuff and handprints and other impressions. It's just too consistent with each other, and also with what we know about non-human primate anatomy. I just don't see any other way around it at this point.
Yeah.
It'd just be so easy to say, oh, what I saw was a special forces guy doing operations and spying on it. It's like, I just don't. Yeah, I can convince myself I didn't see one, although I really do think I did. But this whole thing being written off as some Ray Wallace thing, it just doesn't make any sense to me at all. That seems far more incredulous than Sasquatch's existing.
So is there such a thing as knowing, I guess?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you can always ask yourself, like, like, how real am I? I guess if you want to get down and be philosophical about it.
Yeah.
But I think at some point you just have to, like, the evidence is there, and all these people, are they all crazy, wrong, or lying? I don't think so. Yeah, again, I don't put a lot of weight on the witness stuff. Again, I put my weight on the physical evidence.
Yeah.
And that stuff is internally congruent, and it is good. It is really good. The more familiar you get with the footprint cast evidence, the more astounding it is. Like I've got 300 specimens in my garage right now. I can go out and pull out any drawer. I keep them in those Baker racks. You know what I mean? Like the 20 foot, the 20 thing, drawers, 2 or 3 casts at a time. I've got 9 of those things out there, pretty much chock full of casts. I can open any drawer and say, oh, well, this is there. And like, I can see where this is happening. And I can look at these things and go, oh yeah. And then pull out, and I put them by state and locations, outside the United States. Although I have very little from Canada. I'd love my Canadian research friends to help me out with a couple samples up from there. But anyway, I could pull up something from Kentucky and pull up something from Washington and point out the same features, even though they were cast decades apart. I can't get around that. I can't get around that. So.
And Thomas did correct me. He's maybe had a sighting, but he's
we
being
talked
very
about
honest.
that on the podcast.
Right?
Yeah, he said it was so
he's
far
being
away.
very honest. He just
I had one of those too, Thomas. I saw something so far away. I'm not sure what it was, but it might have been one. But that was a different time.
Well, I saw one. Somebody asked whether I've seen one. I saw one. We were in the car. It was standing at the side of the road, drying off. Me and Yvette both saw it. Got to observe it for, long enough. There's no way. You know what it wasn't. It did have its back to us, but the size of it and the details that we saw in the headlights. I mean, at one point we were 5 feet away from it. So there's probably there's a chance it was some dude in a suit, but
yeah,
I
think it's doable. I'm starting to see this having a visual observation of a Sasquatch is a real possibility now. And that's because, I don't remember. I said 3 or 4 spots. I don't remember 3 or 4 spots that we're really looking into hard. a month ago. I mean, a month ago, one of our guys may have seen one, but he didn't have a thermal image on it. Like at the place we call the Willows, which is where we're doing thermal imaging the other night.
Right.
And we have nicknames, we have code names for all of our spots, because like we share all of our research stuff. Not on Facebook or whatever, because I don't like to be attacked unnecessarily, but we share it to our museum membership. We have a Patreon thing there or whatever. We make videos and we put our stuff out there. My contractor Keith may have seen, he saw something seemingly upright dart across the road. That's all he saw, brief, shadowy, maybe. This past year in September, he saw a weird big black rock that he'd never noticed before at a place we call the Blueberry Bog. And he was talking about it about 5-10 minutes later. And so, yeah, it was right over there. The big black rock was gone, and and then we have the Nico thing this past August, and that the location, we call it Easter Island, where Nico saw one of these things in August. Well, in the last 2 years, we have found and cast 4 sets of footprints and had a visual observation all within 1/2 mile of each other. Wow. In this one spot. And it's like the longer I'm going out and doing this in these specific areas, the more I'm getting to know these areas, the more I'm not going to go down this road because I know this road's muddy. I'm going to go down that road. That kind of thing. The more familiar I'm becoming, and we are becoming as a team at the NABC with these areas, the more I'm realizing, wait, 4 footprint track finds and casts and a visual observation in 2 years. I'm starting to see this as a very real possibility. Now, maybe it's just I have a good spot, because certainly I've been all over the place, and I've got spots I've been going to for 12 years that I've gotten 1 footprint out of or something like that, but I know they're there. I've heard them, and I keep going back. Maybe this spot is special in that way, or maybe people are spreading themselves too thin. And the reason other people aren't having this kind of success is because they're going here for a weekend and there for a weekend the next month and somewhere else, maybe going back the following month. Maybe they're not going to the spots enough. I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. Maybe we just have a good spot and we're lucky. Maybe we're delusional. I have no idea. But it seems, I don't think we're delusional. I don't think we are. It seems that we've got something going on in this location. And again, 4 track finds and an observation of a Sasquatch within 2 years. Not bad.
That's not
bad
bad
at all. No, this is doable because they're animals. They're real animals. And they're not animals, Cliff. What are they? Plants? Come on. We're animals. They're clearly animals, no matter what you think they are, right? They're not protists, they're not fungi. They're animals.
What about the alien theory, Cliff?
Nonsense, of course. Yeah, if they are UFO riding, shape-shifting, interdimensional whatevers, why are they eating roadkill? Why are they digging through trash cans?
I would put it this way: if they're aliens, I would not want to see their ship inside.
No. Well, again, like if they are those things, why don't they just go to the holodeck and order a steak sandwich, man? Because it's way easier than picking up dead coyotes and eating them on the side of the road. Yeah. So
it's a hobby.
I suppose. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Who am I to judge, right?
Well, we had one more question from Amy. She wanted to know about, what do you think of when you come across a hoax, excuse me, do you just let it go? Do you just let karma figure it out? They'll eventually be outed.
I you know what? Hoaxers more than anything, I think, are looking for attention, and I'm going to be the last guy to give it to them. Essentially, I was hoaxed. There's a very prominent voice out there on the internet, on Facebook, who directly targeted me as a hoax. And I busted it with the help of Matt Pruitt, who's one of the best investigators out there. Again, I know a couple of the very best investigators out there, and Matt Pruitt is definitely one of them. Yeah, he's great. And he helped me bust this thing. And I never published his name or anything. Daniel Perez did. He went out and put it. But I'm not going to give anybody attention. 2 weeks ago, I busted a hoax from some Bigfoot group from the Rockies or something. They posting things on Twitter, and I don't think they hoaxed anything. They're just one of these groups that post whatever comes their way without checking into it, I think. And somebody said that first of all, they said that they were in the UK, which is a real strong indicator that this is probably not real to begin with. I personally don't think there are any Sasquatches in the UK. And then there was a photograph of it, and it was just like a partial, like from maybe the chest, the pectoral muscles or whatever, and down a little bit of the arm. And they said, yeah, this was on my game camera, and I can't explain it or whatever. And I'm looking at it and go, wait a minute, that's Murphy. That's my Bigfoot. That's the Bigfoot in my shop. That's the life-size Bigfoot. And so I started looking through older pictures of Bigfoot, because our display of Murphy, rather, our display has changed over the last 3 years that we've been open. And because behind this Bigfoot, this supposed Bigfoot on the trail camera, there was some bamboo, like bamboo in the UK, please. And then some broadleaf plants. I go, wait a minute, those are fake plants I bought on eBay to make the diorama, And so, and what this guy went through all this trouble of taking a picture, reversing it on the vertical axis, and making it black and white. And he even, maybe you heard me talk about other fake game cam pictures before, he even did that strip at the bottom that tells the date and time and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, there's Murphy right there. And so he put all this stuff out, and and I wrote back to the Rocky Mountain group or whatever, saying no, I'm pretty sure. And I didn't say that guy's a liar. I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's my thing, and here's my version. I did the same picture. Here's my version of it. And then I got a letter from that guy, because this group emailed him or whatever saying, hey, Cliff Barackman thinks you're lying or whatever. And then I got a letter or an email. Actually, he emailed back the Rocky Mountain group, and then he forwarded it to me saying, I don't know how this happened. Somebody must have found my game camera, took the card out, and then put the fake picture on the card, and in order for me to find it later. And it's like, why would I believe anything that you say at this point? It's just nonsense. Yeah, so I busted lots of hoaxes. And most things out there I don't think most things are hoaxes. There's a lot of hoaxes out there, especially on YouTube and Facebook. But I think most Bigfoot stuff falls into the pile. Yeah, sincere misidentifications from people who are trying to do the right thing and let people know about it. I think that's the largest group, followed by real stuff, followed by hoaxes.
So what about the danger factor? Do you think there's any danger with these things?
Oh yeah, they're potentially very dangerous, I think. They treat them like grizzly bears, because believe it or not, grizzly bears aren't out to kill you and eat you either. They might sometimes, but that's not their goal. That's not what they're doing out there. They're not hunting humans. And people say, oh, well, I don't never hear about people being attacked. And I point out that we don't hear from the people who didn't survive. They are wild animals. They're human-like in some ways, but they are wild animals, and being human-like, that makes them even potentially more dangerous, in my opinion. One Sasquatch can take out your entire listening audience, probably, if they were all camped in the same spot. But as evidence that they are not out to get us, I would say look around. If they were out to get us, there'd be very few of us left. I think that they are frightened of us, honestly, and they don't want anything to do with us, in the same sort of way that black bears and mountain lions generally don't want anything to do with us. They want to be left alone to their own device and not shot and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
Interesting. Well, we are literally out of time. That went so quick.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm speaking so quickly, to try to fit as much into I can.
Thank you so much, Cliff. Tell us anything they need to know.
Plug-in stuff. Yeah, this is the plug-in part of the show. Yeah, yes. Come to the North American Bigfoot Center if you can. It's enjoyable. I specifically designed it to be enjoyable. I designed it not only to be educational for people like the general public, who know almost nothing about Sasquatches, who are still thinking that there's one individual named Bigfoot, and he has been seen in Florida and British Columbia and wherever in between. But I also designed this museum to be something that I would enjoy, and I'm clearly some level of Bigfoot nerd. So there is stuff in here that you will not see anywhere else. We have a 9-minute piece of footage that I deem to be legitimate that is playing, that was taken down in Roseburg. You cannot see it anywhere else in the world but our museum.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's in-depth analysis of a bunch of pieces of footage and photographs that I have permission to share there. There's explanations of the anatomy of the foot and the hand, other impressions as well. We have a room dedicated more or less to other kinds of spore, I guess, whether it's the face smudge from Texas that you were involved in, Doug, or hair stuff, and other hominoids in other parts of the world. And if you can't come to the museum, well, consider being a member. It's $6 a month. You get pretty much weekly updates on the museum. We're also archiving that. God, I know you're out of time, and I'm so sorry. There's so much.
No,
to fit in.
we're good. But I'm just.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
screw
we
it.
wanna
then.
be-
You go as long as you want. Go.
All right.
Keep going.
Well, yeah, because the museum has basically a threefold mission statement. Number one is to educate the public that these things are in fact real and there. Doesn't change anything. Hunters don't have to stop hunting. They've always been there. They always will be, hopefully. And there you go. Okay. But also the second thing is, of course, we have a gift shop and we charge admission to get in and stuff because it feeds our Bigfooting addiction. That gives us time to go out and do field work in the areas where we've been getting results. And really focus our efforts there. But in a third prong of our approach here, in our mission statement, is possibly the most important. We have tasked ourselves with finding and curating and preserving historic artifacts and research collections. We have obtained the Chuck Edmonds collection. Chuck Edmond is a very active investigator from the early 60s up until about the 70s. Just yesterday, I posted on our museum member page an artifact from the Chuck Edmonds archives. We're archiving all of our artifacts as well. And eventually we're hoping to make that publicly available to some degree and maybe behind a paywall for some stuff, depending on what it is. There's some of this stuff is a little touchy, especially when it comes to witness names. And there's some things we need to take into consideration. But I'm working with a professional archivist to help set up a professional archive, a museum quality archive. We're living up to our name as a museum, not just something we're, the biggest ball of wax, sort of thing. We're actually archiving historical artifacts and collections and doing keyword searches and stuff. We have a lot of personal correspondences. John Green wrote to Chuck Edmonds about some stuff in September of 1967. And he was commenting about, I just went down to California to see these footprints. It's over 600 of them. It was the Blue Creek Mountain footprints. Talks about the British Columbia anthropologist who came out with them, Don Abbott, and mentioned that, we were told 3 different sizes were there, but we could only observe 2. Well, that's interesting right there, the Blue Creek Mountain stuff. And of course, this is before remember, I'm sure your audience knows that the Blue Creek Mountain footprint event was the impetus for Roger Patterson to go down to Bluff Creek, and he ended up getting the footage. So there's these sort of historical snapshots are what we're trying to preserve and share at this point. I just posted that letter yesterday on our members section in the museum there. So there's a lot of goodies there. You also get 2 documentaries that we make in the museum every single month. Generally speaking, they feature our field work out in the areas of casting prints, a lot of failed attempts. And I make sure to show the failed attempts as well, because, Finding Bigfoot and all these other shows, they kind of skew the perception of the public that every time you go out, you find something. And I think that's a suggestion that Bigfooters pick up subliminally. And then they think that when they go out, they get something every time. If you are getting something every time, something's up. Yeah. Something's up. You really got to examine yourself on that one. But
you've got some Paul Freeman artifacts there, I believe.
We do. We have the Paul Freeman map, the research map, and where Paul and Wes Summerlin and Bill Lowry and Dr. Krantz and Dar Addington and David Bean and all the Bigfoot researchers in the blues and from the 80s and 90s would all put their evidence on this one map. We have the original map hanging in the museum. We also, Michael Freeman's a very good friend of mine. He's a good friend of yours too, I know. Michael Freeman has donated to the museum the name tag and patch that Paul was wearing when he observed the Sasquatch on June 10th, 1982. So we have a lot of really neat little we have the tire cover on Peter Burns' Jeep from the Bigfoot Research Project. We have one of those Renee DeHinden cutouts of him doing the Kokanee beer thing. We've got a lot of really interesting tidbits. We have Roger Patterson's autograph that was obtained by a great researcher named Kevin Llewellyn back in early 1968 when Kevin saw Roger present about the film itself in the Spokane Coliseum. On the same night, Dr. Meldrum was in the audience as a 5th grade boy, actually. So we have so many neat historic artifacts to share and stuff. And we are in possession of the Barbara Wasson collection, and Barbara Wasson, if you don't know who she is, she was a pioneering female researcher back in the 1970s. And she like hung out with Renee DeHinden a whole lot, so I have a lot of personal correspondences between them. And if you have her book called Sasquatch Apparitions, all those graphs and whatnot in there, I have all the data cards that went with those, including the hand-drawn graphs that were eventually reprinted in the book itself. They're just, so many neat things. I have what was left of Dr. Leroy Fish's collection that was passed on to me as a good home.
Are you planning on trying to get a copy of the Skookum body cast there?
Yeah. The Skookum cast is the 25th anniversary is coming up in a couple of years. I've already put out a probe to Rick Knoll. He seemed to be open to the idea of getting the cast in the shop. And if we do that, then I'm very good friends with Derek Randalls. He's a brother from another mother.
Derek's
as far as
awesome.
I'm concerned, he's one of my best friends and a brother. So I'd like to get Rick and Derek Randalls, and I'd like to get Tom Powell was there, and get Moneymaker up for it and do like a panel discussion or something like that. I think that would be a neat thing to do. We have some stuff from the Skookum cast. We have the heel. I have a copy of the heel segment of the Skookum cast, which is of course what convinced Darius Swindler.
Do you have one of the pheromone chips people can smell?
Yeah, Dr. Bambanek. Yeah, he's supplied some of those to the museum. They stink. They
So do you have something where people can sniff it somehow?
Yes, I put it in one of those like mustard containers, and I put up like less than a cubic centimeter, and I put it inside there, and it's been like 2 years, and it's still stinky. Yeah.
My favorite thing would be to let a dog smell watch them bolt.
It's kind of similar. I smelled that Sasquatch smell 3 times. And it's kind of similar. It's a little different. I always describe it as dog shit Parmesan.
Well, no, I would let a dog smell the chip.
I know what you mean.
And they would just bolt every time.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's the NABC.
That's so cool.
Education, field work, and of course, obtaining and protecting and historical research collections. I got
what do you think?
So
let's say John Green and Renee DeHinden could take a walk through, spend a day at your museum. What do you think they'd say to you?
Well, Renee would point out, that's bullshit, and that's bull. That's the kind of guy he is, though. But I'm just kidding. I never met Renee. I really wish I had. Larry Lund, of course. Larry Lund was one of Renee's best friends. And Larry, and Larry's a very good friend of mine. I'm very lucky to know Larry. I've commented to Larry, it's like, I don't know if Renee would like me, man. He goes, he would love you. He'd give you a lot of crap, but he would love you.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that's true, but I don't know if it is, because
Oh,
I think that he would. I think that they would point out some stuff, but I say it on our podcast a lot that I think that people hero worship the 4 horsemen a little bit too much. They were good, it was more a time and place thing than how much knowledge they had, and they were very thorough investigators and they did a really good job, especially for where they were at that time. But I think it's fair to say, and I've gotten flack for this too, we know more than them now because we're standing on their shoulders. We know more than them because of them, and we've built upon the foundation that they left us. So I don't know. I think that some of them would have some resistance to the things that we're discovering or thinking or modeling now. But I would like to think that they would. I would like to think that they would enjoy it. And I've had, Meldrum seems to like what I've done. He'll be there on Thursday. We're doing a special event with Jeff. He's going to be in town on Thursday.
Oh, cool.
I'm speaking this weekend. Jeff and I are speaking along with a handful of other people, Mark Marcel, Shane Corson. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few other people. I think Thomas Seward's going to be there. I think Ken Gerhardt might have just been put on the bill too, up at Squatch Fest in Longview, Kelso area. It's a wonderful event that lasts Friday night and Saturday. But Alton Higgins came in the shop like a month ago, and he had great things to say. He said, I don't agree with some of your analyses back there, but generally speaking, it's a really nice museum. Like world class was the word he used. It's like, oh, well, God, that makes me feel pretty good, So, and I don't mind if people disagree with my analyses on things from my perspective,
Sure.
Just don't be a jerk about it.
Yeah, but that's good. We just have to let people express their opinions. We don't want to silence anybody.
No, everybody's got an opinion, and they're all worthless,
Yeah.
including me,
God.
or especially me.
Well, thank you so much, Cliff. It was a
Thank you.
just a great show.
Oh, I enjoy doing the ones, especially when I know the hosts and I consider them friends, you know, because it's just hanging out and some other people are listening too. I don't know how many people are in their chats and stuff like that, but
got quite a few.
Well, that's really nice. And thank you everybody out there for, you know, for caring enough to tune in and enjoying the Hajicek show here. You know, it's neat that we can do this, you know.
Thanks, Cliff. Thank you, audience. Anybody new here in the audience, please subscribe. And thanks, Alex. And we will be talking soon, Cliff.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right. Good night, everybody.
I call you up in the middle of the night. Been bothered by dreams, ain't feeling alright. You give me comfort, say just give it some time. By the end of our talk, I'm feeling just fine. You and I will always know where we belong. This ain't no ordinary love we got going on. I'll pick you up in my 59 Ford. We head on down the road until we get bored. Just you and me and the sun and the wind. If the rain should start falling, we'll head on home again. Everybody